Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Another thrilling comeback in prime time as the Vikings stun the Bears. Also, how panicked should the Detroit Lions be? And what's the deal with the Cincinnati Bengals? I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It wasn't pretty for the Minnesota Vikings through three quarters, and then J.J. McCarthy came alive in the fourth. Another crazy fourth quarter comeback in prime time. Locked On Vikings host Luke Braun reacted after the game.
All right, Ron Batten lead off tonight. I'm dubbing him the Minnesota Prince, J.J. McCarthy. Obviously a tough test for anybody in Soldier on prime time, let alone you're making your first NFL start. A porous start for the offense in the first half, but three straight TD drives to end this thing, led by J.J. and company, including that 14-yard scamper to seal it at the end. How encouraged, Ron, are you walking away from this one? And I guess, what really stuck out, for good or bad, in J.J.'s first professional start?
Yeah, I mean, the first half felt like if J.J. McCarthy had played a little bit more preseason, maybe it wouldn't have started off so bad. So, honestly, I looked at the first drive, the very first drive when he checked out of it a couple of times. It just felt like he was a little bit rushed, felt like the game was moving a little bit too fast for him. I will say the Bears defense drew up a great looking defensive start. They started out well, and then it got real vanilla towards the end. But towards the end, so I tweeted this at halftime. I said, you got to find an offense that fits J.J. McCarthy. What did he do at Michigan? A lot of play action, a lot of rolling out, a lot of getting him out the pocket, running the ball, and then let the kid run every once in a while. And so they did exactly that in the second half, and I think that was the big one. And then for the scramble when he got the first down, and then also the touchdown, that's something that Kirk Cousins wouldn't have done. That's something that Sam Darnold wouldn't have done. That's something Carson Wentz would have done it earlier in his career. But everybody was saying, bring in another quarterback. Why do we let Sam Darnold go? That's why. 143 yards, not great. 92 passer rating, not great. But the pick six. I kind of blame that on Kevin O'Connell a little bit. Like the play call for that coverage, it literally fit what the Bears wanted to do. And J.J. McCarthy, I don't think was prepared to understand. Butt to the sideline, they're running some type of sit because he's not going to put his butt to the sideline if he's playing true man. He was basically just playing out in that zone, and they had a deep safety if you wanted to run by. If they ran by that guy, the former Vikings, Nashawn Wright? If he had just run by him and threw it in the zone hole, he'd have been wide open on the sideline. But, the play was for an out route. It just wrong play. Right defense, bad throw. Hey, but he got his pick six out the way early. I think everybody knew the pick six was coming at some point.
You got to throw that one.
You got it out the way early.
That exact pick six. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ron, he checked into that, right? I think he saw the blitz and changed something.
He did something.
He
said something. I don't know if he changed the protection, or I don't know if he changed the play, but he did do something. Yeah. Because Peyton Manning was even talking about that. Peyton Manning said on the Manning cast, I don't know if you guys saw that Eli was like, yeah, the Bears in the first half, man, they're calling the great defense. And Peyton was like, I would have thought that was man coverage. Like it literally did look like it because of how many guys.
Yeah, it looked like zero.
And they're finding ways to drop back last minute. They're finding ways to switch. And so, and honestly, I sat on this tweet, and I'm glad I didn't tweet it because I felt like Brian Flores and Ben Johnson was about to be another one of those, just I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you slowly. And Flores made just enough plays to keep his defense, off the field and let the offense go. But unfortunately, you lose Blake Cashman. It was one of those days where I was glad other guys didn't get hurt. And then now one of you guys said before we started that maybe Okuda's out, so yeah. It's a thin room already, and then that happens. Can we get Nashawn Wright back? I know he got hurt too, though. I don't even know if he's going to be back.
He came back. He was fine. He just needed a little massage gun. But I think that pick six is such a key moment because it's such a welcome to the NFL moment, right? Where it's far hash out route, cornerbacks jumping it. You think in the Big Ten, you used to be able to hum that thing every single time and that corner would never make the play. Now they make the play. Now you got to adjust that. But I think it also, kind of shakes you out of your pregame jitters. You go, and you get a different emotion. And now it's just, okay, I got to shake everything off totally reset my mind and go play. And I feel like that's kind of what happened, that he used the pick six as kind of a mental jumping off point to figure out how to just get into a rhythm and go play the sport he knows how to play. And not long after that, we're rattling off touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive.
Yeah, he was used to hitting Roman Wilson with Michigan on that little out route all day for about 2 years there. Sam, the threading the needle to JJ, that finally got him on the board, shook some jitters off, said, okay, I can do this. Aaron Jones wheel route down the sideline, and then to Ron's point, that 14-yard scamper. The way he finished it, though, John Elway-esque. But before that, the first half, just some simple, mundane stuff, right? Like, I don't know if it was the plays were getting in slow, but a lot of maybe miscommunication with Ryan Kelly at the line of scrimmage. That play clock kept tripping down, and just a lot of frustration watching that offense in the first half. A lot of highs at the end, a lot of lows to start with. What were your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, training wheels were on in the first half, and I think the jitters were in play. I mean, I truly am willing to give a 22-year-old kid one half to feel all the feels of being in the NFL, being in the stadium where he cheered for the Bears growing up. Everyone's eyeballs are on you, hostile environment, having to navigate the noise, navigate the blitzes in your first half of one game. So I'll give him that. The first half was rough. Got a little happy feet on third down. They didn't draw up too much for him, but I thought the throw right before halftime might have been a little bit of a turning point.
Yeah.
That gave him, got 3 free points there at the end. Some weirdness with the ball getting spotted and some clock management, but then the pick six happens.
Horrible spot.
Well, I think they gave him 5 extra yards, and then they moved it after the Vikings had basically sent the field goal team out, which was were you scratching your head saying, wait, we got 11 seconds on the clock, we're not going to try to move this a la Mike Zimmer week 2 in Arizona here, Greg Joseph goes wide 38 yards, can't we just get the extra 2-3 yards, why not, kind of thing, or were you content with that, Sam? No, I was puzzled by KOC's thinking there. 11 seconds, you could probably get 2 sideline plays, to be honest with you. In fact, you could even run 1 quick play over the middle and spike it and still get yards. But so the first half was just atrocious for a lot of people, right? But ball getting through JJ's hands on a third down. Yeah, I thought that was McCarthy could have had an 80% completion game if players had hung on to the ball. So let's point that out as well. Really, the most egregious thing he did was the pick six. Beyond that, I thought ball placement was actually pretty good on the whole for this game. A couple times where he was very close to breaking through the pocket and running for a first down and then just got tripped up by the shoelaces. I thought the pocket was spotty at times, but the running game turned out to be his best friend in this one, and that's exactly what we envisioned when they rebuilt this team's mentality to be a lot more physical in the offseason. It got better as the game went on. Bears wore down, and that gave JJ a lot of confidence.
You can stay up to date all year on the Minnesota Vikings by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Vikings on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Lions fans are already starting to panic, but should they? Before we get to that, the injury bug isn't leaving San Francisco anytime soon. The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The 49ers Week 2 injury report already looks more like a medical chart than a depth chart. George Kittle is out a few weeks with a hamstring issue, while Brock Purdy is suddenly questionable with shoulder and toe injuries. If Purdy can't go against New Orleans, Mac Jones would step in as the quarterback. Yes, that Mac Jones. San Francisco is also juggling injuries to Juwan Jennings and Ben Barch, plus uncertainty at kicker after Jake Moody's rough Sunday. Things are not looking good in San Fran, though they did get the Week 1 win. Elsewhere in the NFL, the Eagles are making another trade, snagging running back Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars.
Trader Howie Roseman is back at it, his 5th trade since August 17th. He's sending a 5th and 6th round draft pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars for running back Tank Bigsby. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. In a vacuum, I wouldn't love the idea of trading 2 day 3 draft picks for a backup running back. But think about it this way. The Eagles have, first off, 1 million draft picks in 2026, a lot to spare, a lot to go around. They run the football more than anybody in the league, and they need somebody else to spell Saquon Barkley to keep him healthy throughout 2025. Will Shipley's injury, it's probably going to keep him out for a while. Bigsby had over 700 rushing yards last year and 7 rushing touchdowns. He's also a good returner, averaged over 32 yards a kickoff return in 2024. I think this is as good a move as you can do to replace Shipley, so I like it.
Over on the diamond, the Phillies took a 1-0 win over the Mets.
Aaron Nola comes up with the clutch performance of the season for the Phillies in a huge series against the Mets. Game 1 of a 4-game set in South Philly. He tosses 6 scoreless innings, striking out 7 and only allowing 5 base runners in the process. 3 by way of the hit, 2 issuing some free passes. But he was spectacular in this start. And it wasn't about just mixing the pitches. That was great. It wasn't about the knuckle curve. That was on point tonight as well. For me, it's not about 94 miles per hour on the radar gun when you talk about his 4-seam fastball. Aaron Nola is at his best, and it has been a long time since we've seen his best. He's at his best when he's getting that phenomenal run on his sinker. And there was one specific pitch that he threw, and it was to Brandon Nimmo in the 3rd inning, a 2-2 sinker that started at Nimmo's shoulders and wound up top of the zone, middle of the plate. Phenomenal run on that, sat him down looking. That's the Aaron Nola that this Phillies team is going to need down the stretch.
And the Brewers fell flat on the road against the Rangers.
Not too often this year where we can say, especially this summer, that the Brewers got taken to the cleaners. Hey, everybody, Chuck Freeman, instant reaction, Locked On Brewers. Just didn't play a good game. Got some guys thrown out on the base paths. Jose Quintana was taking a perfect game into the 5th, and then he gave up a couple of walks. There was a drop pop-up to start things off there down the first base line. Terang couldn't negotiate the pop-up, and then eventually the 8th place hitter in the Rangers lineup hit a grand slam. Added a base hit that drove it a run a little bit later on. Hellman did. And that's the way the night went for the Brewers. It just wasn't a good night. Again, scoreless tie until the grand slam. And we'll just chalk it up as hard to get angry at the Brewers, right? They've been so good. But they've only been 11-12 since that 14-game winning streak. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on tonight on the next edition of Locked On Brewers.
Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. I don't know if you heard that. I think the Lions heard that on Sunday as the Green Bay Packers dominated the Detroit Lions, much the same way the Lions have dominated everyone else over the last handful of years at the line of scrimmage. A 27-13 win for the Pack. Matt Derry from Locked On Lions joins me now. And Matt, new coaches, new offensive line. I know that I've seen the social media. I'm sure you are seeing it even more. I see panic from Lions fans. What is the panic meter right now, 1 to 10?
It's not that high for me, but it's certainly high for the fans, Pete, because they expected better and did not expect to get pushed around, like you said, on Sunday afternoon. A quick side note, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz will be inducting Micah Parsons into the Hall of Fame this year. But no, in all honesty, Parsons was fantastic. The whole Green Bay defense was so physical. And the Lions, and I saw this on your show, you mentioned it, once they got punched in the mouth down 7-0, it really was the game. And that's unlike Detroit and a Dan Campbell coach team over the last 3 years. Panic is high for the fans because they had high expectations. For me, I still say it's a very good football team that had a bad day.
Yeah.
They got some work to do, and they got to clean it up for Chicago this week.
Dan Campbell said in the press conference that he felt like the issues were fixable. I mentioned the coordinator issues. We don't know what that's going to look like. Offensive line, Christian Mahogany, the new starter at left guard, Tate Ratledge, the rookie starter at right guard, Graham Glasgow at center. You texted me about him. I won't share what you texted me. But you didn't think he played particularly well.
No.
So is like, to what degree do you think this is fixable this year?
Well, no, and PFF agreed with me. Graham Glasgow was the lowest rated Lion on offense on Sunday. They've got to get that worked out. When you lose a Frank Ragnow, and you and I talked about it all summer, that is a monster loss. But you can't. If Glasgow's unplayable, what are you going to do? That's an issue. He really was bad. And if you have leakage in the middle of the offensive line, I expect Tate Ratledge to bounce back. He's a really good player in college. He was at Georgia. He's a right guard. He's sitting at right guard. He'll be fine. I'm not worried about him. My concern is at center, and my concern is that that just kind of throws off all the timing with the run game, and that leads to the play action passing game, which is so good. The Lions were behind the sticks all day. And defensively, they got to get more pressure on the quarterback. I mean, my gosh, Jordan Love, his jersey was as clean as it was at 1 o'clock, or at 4:25, and 7:25 would look the same. So they got some stuff to work out.
I compared it on my show, Matt, when you bring in these new coordinators that you're essentially saying, let's keep doing what we've been doing. Is you buy the cookbook for the French Laundry or Daniel Boulud, and then you get all the ingredients and you try and make the food, and it doesn't taste anywhere near as good as when you have it at the restaurant. It felt a little bit like that on Sunday, where it's like, yeah, that's the Lions stuff. They're doing the things that Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson did. It just was missing that oomph, that artistry. And I think that's going to be the question for this team, right? Is can they adapt? Can Dan Campbell bring them along? What do you think Dan Campbell's role in all of this is going to have to be?
I think it's to get back to the basics. I think it's blocking and tackling. I think it's winning up front. There's still a lot of talent here. If the talent was barren and let's say injuries hit again, or a St. Brown wasn't out there, a Jamison Williams, heck, their fourth receiver made the play of the day. Tesla at the end and a garbage time touchdown was an unbelievable play. They want to get him the ball. So Laporta had a good day. He did. That's a one bright spot for them. So it's just a matter of getting back to the basics. I think there's enough talent on this team, but hopefully that was a wake-up call. Green Bay is not going away. They're going to be very good. You know that. And so, they were due to beat the Lions at home, and they did. Now the Lions have got to come home and do that to the Bears.
The part that was, I think, most surprising to me, Matt, was the Lions' inability to establish anything on the ground. And they were the most explosive run team. I said this on my show. I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was the scariest player in the NFL last year. Every time he touched the ball, I was like, you're just holding on to your seat. And it didn't feel like that at all. There was no juice. How do you get that back with this offense?
I do think that is where John Morton has got to be a little bit more creative to get Gibbs out on the perimeter. I thought there were way too many dive plays for Gibbs. That's David Montgomery's bread and butter, is the dive stuff. I'm getting Gibbs out in space on that fast track at Ford Field this weekend and doing a little bit more creatively with him out on the exterior of the perimeter of that defense. I think that's where they'll win. And like I said, I think they're going to be all right. They got to win Sunday because they got to go to Baltimore for Monday Night Football in week 3. And
the schedule's brutal.
It is brutal, but hopefully a wake up call, like we said. But I agree with you about Gibbs. He got plenty of touches. He just didn't go anywhere.
Stay up to date all year on the inferior Detroit Lions by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Lions on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We love you, Matt Derry. Coming up, what exactly is going on with the Bengals? It was going to be different this year in Cincinnati. They were going to fix the slow starts that had plagued this team. The starters played in preseason. Joe Burrow even looked pretty good in preseason. And then in week 1 against the Cleveland Browns, it took 2 miraculous interceptions, including the clincher at the end, to beat the Browns, squeeze past the Browns 17-16. James Rapine from Locked On Bengals joins me now. And James, at the risk of sounding like Jerry Seinfeld, what's the deal with the Bengals?
Look, I wish I knew what their deal was, especially in that
they do too.
Half. The wild part is, Peter, is the offense started out well. Right. They marched downfield, they scored a touchdown, then they punted, and then they scored another touchdown, and they had 14 points at halftime. If you would have told me at the half that they were only going to score 3 more points, and those 3 points were going to be because of a great Jordan Battle interception that put them in range, field goal range right away, I would have laughed at you, and then I would have said, well, they're definitely losing the game. So I think it is miraculous that they found a way to win it. At the same time, yeah, their lack of production in the second half is mind-boggling when you look at the numbers. 2 net yards, 7 total yards. Joe Burrow was 11 of 14 for 88 yards and a touchdown in the first half. The second half, he was 3 of 9 for a whopping, get this, 25 yards. And Chase Brown didn't have 1 rushing yard in the second half, despite 9 attempts. So yikes. It was really, really rough in the second half.
Okay. And if you're a Bengals fan, are you going, well, we've seen this before and they figured it out. And by the end of last year, the offense was really humming, or is this genuine cause for concern at this point for Bengals fans?
I think it's wild to say, but they're in such a better spot. I mean, the Bengals are in a much better spot than they've been in since 2021 because they're 1-0. You're right. And so are you, after one game, going to say, oh, well, Joe Burrow and this offense is in trouble? I'm not there yet. There might be some fans that say that. I think that the Browns certainly have a magic elixir to slow this Bengals offense down, and we've seen it in recent years. And we saw it in the second half, certainly, to a level that we hadn't seen it in the past. I mean, they finished with 141 total yards, the lowest of the Zach Taylor era. So unacceptable, but they did get to 1-0. And I think there's reasons to believe that this defense could be better than it was last year, which was everybody's question all offseason long. And so do I think the offense will figure it out? I do. They're going to need to figure it out in a hurry, though, with Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars looming.
Well, I think, you don't have to be much of a skeptic to go, okay, the defense looked better, but we're talking about, 55-year-old Joe Flacco and an offense that has been a mess over the last few years.
No doubt. No doubt. Like, that's holding the Browns to 16 points is exactly what a good defense should do. I'm not sure they should have given up the 16 as quickly as they did. I mean, the Browns were moving the ball up and down the field. And if there weren't for a few drops, I think there are Browns fans that would be like, hey, we would have had far more than 16 points. Obviously, they had to miss kicks as well. So totally get that. But I do think that this defense showed some signs, far from buying. They have to continue to build that equity. And that's why I'm not panicking about the offense, because we're talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and guys that have that equity. This defense certainly hasn't had it. So it's not what I had on my bingo card for week one and how the Bengals, their path to 1-0, but they found a way to get there.
If there is a bright spot that is not going to show up in the stat sheet, I think his name is Shamar Stewart, a player who we did not see in camp. I was talking to your colleague, Jake Lisco, about for weeks. And he held up surprisingly well, playing a versatile role on this front, a new defensive coordinator, a new defense. And he came in right away and made an impact. He did. And he was noticeable in game. And yeah, you're right. He did not fill up the stat sheet, but he was been disruptive throughout his training camp practices. And you just kind of notice 97 being a pest, being annoying, being around Joe, batting balls that Jake Browning specifically is thrown when he was with the second team. And you're like, okay, well, if he can be this and Trey comes back, then you feel pretty good. And that happened, especially in the second half when this defense started to get stops. Shamar Stewart was around the ball. He was being disruptive. And I do think that that's sort of what I expect from him moving forward. Not that he's refined or technique sound, but he's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he's got a high motor. And those things translate when you're a pass rusher like him. And finally, it didn't take long for the Russell Wilson experiment to go sideways in New York. After an ugly opener where the Giants failed to score a touchdown and Wilson managed just 168 passing yards, Coach Brian Daboll was non-committal about starting Russell Wilson, at least in the aftermath of the game. On Monday, he clarified and said Russell Wilson will get the start in week 2 at least. But there was reporting before the week 1 game that the Giants had a package of plays ready to go for Jackson Dart if the game script warranted. It's fair to wonder if that game script might be coming sooner than later. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, are the Dolphins okay after getting drubbed by Daniel Jones and the Colts? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.